Hey guys, Jexie here. Welcome back to another video. So today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. First off, I apologize for being a little on the orange side. It's raining, and in order for me not to seem crazy dark, I have this light, but it's not quite the right coloring, but you know, you do with what you got. But today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about when my using went from being fun, like when drugs change from being fun and useful to being something I had a problem with. I don't know about you guys, but like for me, for a long time, like drugs were fun. I loved using. I loved the feeling of it. I liked how they made me more productive. Like I could give you a list of all the reasons I love drugs until the day I didn't anymore. And I thought I would kind of talk about that transition period so maybe you guys could kind of relate. So, I started using when I was 15, I guess. And I wasn't using all the time. It was a occasional thing, go to parties, hang out with friends. I was really excited. I actually did a podcast that is aired today. I posted it, I retweeted it. If you want more information, I'll put it down. I'll put the link in the description of this video too. And it got me to thinking about, I tried to sum up my whole life story in like an hour on a podcast, right? But I was thinking that it would be kind of interesting to talk about like my actual experience with like realizing I had a problem. I used all the time as a high school, college, smoked pot, did this, like whatever you had, like I was good for, like especially things I could blow up my nose. If you had it, I wanted it, and I didn't even care. Like I can't tell you the amount of things I blew up my nose that I didn't even know what they were. Like didn't even question it. I smoked things I didn't know what they were. Like if you had drugs and you're like, here, I was like, great, and it never occurred to me it could be something dangerous or bad. I was like, if they're getting high, then I can get high. And I used that way for a long time and really never had any problems. I didn't have any, like, the only problems I ever really had with like drugs is I didn't like the feeling of coming off of them. So I didn't do a lot of uppers because I didn't like the come down feeling. And like I would always, if I was drinking, I would tend to drink way too much and be hungover the next day. So those were like my negative feelings with drugs. But I didn't have any like major problems until later. So I got married in 2006, and it's also when I had my first child. And I got married to an injured soldier. I've talked about this before. And, look, looking back, I can point things out, but like, let's just say things were fine, right? Like we had a decent marriage, like everything was great. I mean, it wasn't great, but look, like in hindsight, things are always different, right? But problems that I really started to have were like years after I was married. I remember it was 2009. It was shortly after the birth of my second child. No, it was after that because this was not until after I was done breastfeeding. So it must have been 2010, 2011, beginning of 2011 probably, because I didn't use while I was breastfeeding my son like at all, and that was fine. I didn't have any problems with that. So anyway, I lived in a house with somebody who had to take like a whole bunch of payments, like a ton. Like he used to have them all in like a backpack, and he would take some, and then the reason he had like this huge stash is because he would get prescribed like a month's worth of like all these crazy pills. He'd take a couple days and they wouldn't work well, so he'd get a script, they'd give him a script for something else. And so he'd like over the years had accumulated like backpacks full, like a huge backpack full of payments, and that he didn't take anymore. And I remember my sister used to sing like the Dora the Backpack song, like backpack, backpack, like whenever I would talk about using. So he was really at a point where his PTSD and his traumatic brain injuries were pretty severe. He had physical injuries too, but the mental injuries were the worst. And he wasn't able to like be intimate. He wasn't able to give any kind of emotional support. Like there was no hugging, there was no making out. Forget sex, like that, forget it. Like that wasn't even on the table, right? But like we weren't intimate in any way, like not even like non-sexual intimacy. We didn't really talk. he just kind of sat on the couch all the time, and it started to really wear me down. And I remember the one day he was like, hey, you want one of my old pills? And I was like, all right. And I took that and I was like, yes, okay. Like, I immediately felt like, well, if I can't have any type of real relationship, like, he's going to share his pills, then, like, sounds good to me. And so in the evenings, sometimes he would share his pills, and it became a control thing. And sometimes he wouldn't. And I remember, like, that being very frustrating. Like, I would wait all day to see if he was going to give me a pill at night, you know? And I remember the day he had given me a half of a pill, and he had put the other half in a cabinet. And the one day I had asked him if he would share, and he had told me no. And I was mad. So I took the one out of the drawer, and I used it. And I guess it was like, I didn't think he even remembered it was there. And like a week later, he was going to share with me again, and he went to give me that pill. And it wasn't there. And he was like, did you take it? Did you take it? And I was like, I had him convinced that he was a bad father and that he left it in a place where the kids could get to. And how dare he? And how does he know one of the kids didn't take it? And knowing full well that I had taken it, right? Like, that's how sick I had started to get. And this is at the beginning. So, like, that was the moment he stopped sharing with me, and that was the moment where I started taking them from him. And I had no problem taking pills. They weren't pills he was taking, right? Like, he had his prescription stuff. These were, like, literally a whole backpack full of, like, older pills. And I remember, like, my first experience with withdrawal, like, not even understanding what was happening. And, like, he had kept me high for so long that then I started going through withdrawal, and I was scared. And he was like, oh, I'll help you get through the withdrawal, and then, you know, we'll not use anymore because it's clearly a problem. And I was like, yeah, of course. But, like, that was totally not my plan. I remember he had in the top of his closet, he had a bottle of 95 milligram Percocets, so nothing strong, just like, and they were in a FedEx bag because they came from the pharmacy, and they were in the top of the closet, and he had never opened the FedEx bag, and they were going to be kept, because he had cycled on and off meds, so there was periods of times where, like, he wasn't taking pain pills anymore, so he didn't have anything else in the house, or he had moved it, I don't know, he knew I was taking them, so, but that bag was up there, he figured it was safe, it was in a sealed FedEx bag. So I opened the corner of the FedEx bag, and I would, like, re-glue it, and I started with, like, I'll just take 2 out. I'm sick, I need something, let me just take the 2. And I replaced it with Excedrin because they were the same shape, and I figured, who's going to notice 2 Excedrin in a bottle? Before I knew it, that bottle was filled with 90 Excedrin, and Excedrin has, like, a giant E on them. It is in no way what Percocet looks like, except for the shape and the color, you know? So he found out, and I had the police at my house while he was at work one day. He pressed charges on me, and they served me paperwork for theft at my home from my husband. And I think that was the first time, like, I had had any realization that, like, this was more serious than I thought. And so that was really, as things started, I used regularly, and I had to, and I didn't know how to stop. I didn't like the feeling of being sick, and I felt like with opiates, like, I could do so much more. Like, I was like the best, like, mom, the best housekeeper, the best at doing laundry. Like, I felt like opiates, like, helped me motivate and do stuff, and I got so much more done. And I lost everything. And I wasn't even aware that I was losing it until it was gone, you know? So that was kind of when, like, it went from fun to, like, a need, you know, when I was living to use and using to live, right? Where it was no longer fun, where I was losing things in my life. I think what's so crazy, and, like, I'll get into, like, the next stages of that story, in other videos. I don't want to make this too crazy long, obviously, but I don't know about anybody else, but for me, like, that transition between drugs being fun and drugs being a problem, like, happened without me realizing it. And I would venture to say that a lot of people have that kind of experience where, like, using's fun, and now you have to use because you can't not use. And you're like, how did I get here? And that was tough. Like, I was a mom. I thought I was like a good mom, right? Like, I had a nice house. I had a husband who had a nice job. We had nice cars. And like, Nick, I'm totally addicted to opiates and I have no idea what to do. So yeah, I would really be interested to hear your guys' stories of, when did using go from being fun to a problem? Were you aware that transition was happening, or is it like me? Like, by the time you realized it was a problem, it was already a problem. I'd love to hear about other people's experiences. Please check out the podcast I did. Let me know what you think. It's kind of weird listening to myself talk on it. So I was listening to it a little while ago, and I don't know, I'm really excited. I never got asked to do something like that. So check that out. I'll link it in the description below. And yeah, I hope you all have an amazing weekend, and I look forward to chatting with you guys on Tuesday. Have a great day. Don't forget, please like the video if you liked the video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Then you'll know when I upload videos, which I do every Tuesday and Friday. And I look forward to talking to you all soon. Have a great weekend, everyone.